It is the Burnout. He is Peter Burns, the SEC Network and ESPN. I'm Ryan Brown. Thank you for joining us. The show presented by MyBookie.ag. Code next round to get that sign-on bonus match up to $1,000. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. MyBookie.ag. Code next round for that bonus. What is up, Burnsy? How are you?
I'm doing well. I am out of the palatial New York City Burnout Studios today. I went and got to see not Danny DeVito, Tommy DeVito
Tommy
yesterday. I
DeVito.
wanted to call him Danny DeVito in the Giants, and it was like the most Tebow-like win I've ever seen on a Monday Night Football game. Like, it was just disgustingly ugly, and yet they found a way to win. And they're like halfway through the game, like they're like just ripping this poor kid, like, oh, DeVito sucks. And then after that, they're like, want to carry him off the field. Like, it was everything that I wanted to be Monday Night Football.
Let me ask you this, though. That's a passionate fan base, the Jets. You know, any New York fan base is pretty crazy and wild. Is there any commonality in a fan base like that to a college game? Do you feel like you're at Tiger Stadium or something like that?
What's funny is I always crap on the NFL because I feel like the NFL, especially living in Charlotte, where it's the Panthers, where it's all like golf claps and it's just brutally tough to watch. I sit there and I'm like, man, the NFL is such a parody product that there's not really that love. And then I'm literally riding the train over to the MetLife Stadium with all the Giants fans and all the Packers fans last night. And I mean, they're talking trash to each other. I'm like, okay. And then I get to the stadium and everybody's standing up for the first half of the game.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, all right, this is what I kind of thought it was. And I saw that a lot back in the day when I worked with the Denver Broncos. But to see it, it ain't SEC football. That's the damn truth. But those two fan bases, there's enough disdain out of them that I'm like, all right, there's enough hatred that I kind of like this. I can sign up for it.
I haven't been to a ton of NFL stadiums, but I have found, unless you're like really, really good seats, you stand a lot of the game. A lot of college stadiums, they'll still sit down, but boy, in the NFL, for whatever reason, they like standing at the game, man.
It was cold. The beer was cold. And how about this? And then I was like, I couldn't imagine, the SEC just started selling alcohol in some of the stadiums. I think the majority of the stadiums have it, right? Like, what you know better than I do, because I'm normally in studio, Brownie. What time is the cutoff for alcohol sales in SEC stadiums? Do you know?
I do not. I would guess end of the third quarter, but I really have no idea.
That's what I thought it was too. So right after halftime, I go up and I'm like, all right, let's grab a couple beers for the second half. And I'm talking about like it was as if I had just like broken into the nuclear codes. They're like, nope. They're like, as soon as the ball kicks off in the third quarter, there are no alcohol sales. And I was like, what are we doing here? I'm like the fact that SEC has more probably lenient beer policies than the NFL in New York City was just nuts to me.
That is pretty wild. But boy, I bet the fans that know that stock up at halftime. I bet it is a bad rush at the half.
And I saw a lot of LSU. I saw a lot of LSU fans that were out there that I think that said, hey, listen, we're going to come out there. We're going to go enjoy the festivities for, of course, Jayden Daniels winning the Heisman. And you saw a lot of purple and gold over there at Monday Night Football, which I thought was pretty cool.
That gets us to our first topic. Let's rank the Heisman winners at LSU, okay?
Ooh.
Part two, we're going to look at this in the SEC, but you got an LSU background. Daniels has won it, so we got Daniels, Billy Cannon, and Joe Burrow, right?
Yeah.
And
we're ranking 2 and 3, aren't we? I mean, like it's Joe freaking Burrow, right?
He's got to be number one, right?
I understand the numbers, but I mean, like, there's just something that personified everything about Joe Burrow and what he meant to LSU football. It was the Coach O would come in. It was the win against Alabama, but even before that, remember he got the absolute snot knocked out of him in the bowl game against UCF, and it was almost like the origin story of Joe Burrow coming alive and be like, all right, we're about to just absolutely crush college football. So, I mean, everything, including him like waving goodbye to the crowd at Texas when they won and they went for it on 3rd and 17. Like, Joe Burrow ends up being number one. Okay. Now, the Billy Cannon thing obviously is interesting because he's such a legendary figure and, of course, the Halloween run. But I don't think that cuts through with anybody that's, younger than the age of probably myself, 44. Like, I'm aware of Billy Cannon. Like, I know the legend, but it's about Jayden Daniels. And I almost am too close to it, Brownie. So I wanted to ask you about it. Like, I heard people saying, oh, this is one of the weakest Heisman winners I've ever seen. And I'm like, I can't I can't argue for or against that because I can't see the trees through the forest right now, right? Like I'm or the vice versa. Like I'm all in on LSU right now. Did it feel like Daniels did not deserve it, or like this was a weak crowd? I didn't believe that.
I don't know. I think people say that because Daniels isn't playing for a national championship contender. If LSU were Alabama and they were in the college football playoff, then yeah, I think people would have been all about Jayden Daniels. I think it has become best player, best team for the most part. Now, obviously, Daniels is the exception to that. He's best player, but LSU's not the best team. So I think people look at
and
that.
2 years in a row too. Remember Caleb Williams last year was in a college football playoff team. So like, if anything, I think the committee, as at least the Heisman voters, have kind of dispelled the notion that it's just QB1 on the number one team in the country going forward.
Yeah, but I think it's maybe why people say that. You know, Billy Cannon just doesn't really resonate with me. Like, I can't tell you outside of the Halloween run, which CBS showed every time Ole Miss and LSU played. Sure. I can't really tell you what else he did. Like, I don't know about his LSU career.
Yeah, and I don't know who else won it in 61 or 62 or all these other, these other years. So to me, the recency bias is there. But I was actually, I don't know about you, but I was actually shocked that Michael Penix got second and it was that close. Like I thought, okay, he needs to go ahead and beat Bo Nix, but I knew that Daniels was going to win it if for no other reason, because Penix had won the game. And the fact that I thought Pac-12 voters were going to split each other's votes. Like some would go Bo Nix and some would go Michael Penix, so therefore you would have it. But I thought Nix was going to end up getting second, not Penix.
Yeah, and I would go with Burrow simply because it was the national championship team. That said, Joe Burrow was on a better team than Daniels. You asked Daniels to do more now. Well, I'm about to say that, but my gosh.
Don't do it. Cut yourself.
Team-wise, no. Team-wise was better. Offense-wise, they're really, really close. Like, I mean, Jamar Chase to Malik Neighbors, not a real big difference there, is there?
Yeah, I think, no, there isn't. And I mean, even you go back to, Justin Jefferson and the numbers that Brian Thomas put out. I mean, the difference was that 09 or the 2019 offense had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I think ran the ball extremely well, had some big moments, caught the ball out of the backfield a lot. So I think that, even Thaddeus Moss was pretty good for that tight end, that they didn't necessarily get that out of Mason Taylor this year. And also, I think that team was a little bit more complimentary. I think, honestly, what ends up helping Jayden Daniels, and the reason why he won the Heisman, is because LSU's defense was so damn atrocious, right? Like, if it's a better team, then I'm like, well, he's probably not out there late in some of these games, and the numbers don't play out probably the same way. So I just go, I don't know. It's frustrating because I sit there and go, as much as this year was fun, and I'm glad he won the Heisman, like, it ends up being as frustrating as it was back in the day when LSU had great defenses and no offense.
Remember, like 2011.
Oh, dude, that for a decade, it was like toss sweep right, toss sweep left, and what quarterback is going to throw for 142 yards and we're going to win 21-13. Like, but so I you sit there and like you turn the faucet all the way on one way of saying, all right, our defense is great, but our quarterbacks suck. And now the flip side of it, like defensively, they're absolutely atrocious, but you're bringing Heisman Trophy winners to Baton Rouge and another transfer portal guy. Monster.
No, I know. MyBookie, we'll talk about his place in SEC history in just a moment. MyBookie.ag, code next round, brings you the show. Don't forget, when you use code next round, you get that sign-on bonus. You make your initial deposit, they give you a bonus up to $1,000 at MyBookie.ag. When you use code next round, MyBookie.ag, code next round. Also, gift giving season is here. Consider Manscaped, manscaped.com. This is the handyman, compact, easy travel razor, but they got a lot of great products. The Beard Hedger, which I use every single week. The Weed Whacker, which takes care of the nose hair and the ear hair. The Lawnmower, which takes care of the full body and the undercarriage. They've got great boxer shorts, great male body products, all at manscaped.com, manscaped.com. And right now, because you're watching the Burnout, code BURNS. And you save 20% off your initial order at manscaped.com with code BURNS. So, I mean, look, the history of the SEC, there are great players all over the place. Even guys that didn't win the Heisman, Peyton Manning that didn't win the Heisman, people like that. You think Jayden Daniels, I mean, if you just gut spitballed it, top 20 season NFL or SEC history, top 50 season? I mean, Just your gut. Where does it tell you?
I mean, it's interesting because the gut tells me it's not a top 20 season,
I
although
know.
statistically it is. And I don't know if that's just because we saw Jayden the first year and he wasn't that great, and then all of a sudden he took off. It's almost like you're like, what? He had another 400-yard game? Really? Like,
Yeah.
I felt like when Burrow was doing it, you're like, dude, I am right in. Like, holy crap, look at Joe Burrow. And it wasn't until probably halfway through the season where it was like, this is not just a blip. Like, this is what LSU's offense is. And so I don't know if he's ever going to get that credit. Now, I think he would have had Joe Burrow not been there in 2019, right? If 2019 Joe Burrow doesn't happen and they don't win the national championship, LSU fans will have embraced this. But
Yeah.
it's no different than Georgia winning national championships or Alabama. It's like, all right, well, we got another great quarterback. They don't celebrate it as much as as the newness that was Burrow back in 2019.
But the truth is, by what metric do I compare Herschel Walker, Derek Thomas, and Jayden Daniels, right? They're all doing different things. They're doing them to an exceptional level, but they're just doing different things. So I don't – is Derek Thomas a better pass rusher than Joe Burrow was a quarterback? I don't know. They were both phenomenal.
And then think about just the great running backs that we've had in this conference as well, too, of like, how do you do it? I think ultimately what's weird is that I think like Burrow's play will be forever remembered as a national championship. I think Jayden Daniels will forever be remembered about how bad LSU's defense was. As crazy as that is, as good as he played, I think in 15 years from now, when I think of Jayden Daniels winning the Heisman, I'm not going to think about the 55-yard scamper against Florida or, how great he was at Alabama in that first half. I think ultimately I'm going to come out and think about, oh, yeah, that was a year LSU's defense was atrociously bad. And that's just a weird way to couch one of the greatest performances in college football history.
While we're on LSU, can I just say a player that I don't think gets enough love for what he did and his SEC career is Kevin Falk. It's like,
no doubt.
We talk about Bo Jackson and Herschel Walker, rightfully so. Derrick Henry, they're all amazing running backs. Kevin Falk was a stud on some average and bad teams.
He said him and guys like Booger McFarland are the guys that kind of set the new level or the expectation for LSU. Like I talked to Matt Moscona over there at 104.5 ESPN all the time because I'm like, you got boots on the ground. Like you've been a diehard LSU fan since birth. You've seen every single snap. And we talked about that. And he brought up that fact, listen, Kevin Falk arguably is still the greatest college football player that LSU has ever had. When you look at the all-purpose yards and then more importantly, what he meant to know, hey, I can go there and I can have success. So all of a sudden, more of these guys decided to show up and stay home in the state of Louisiana. And it was a monster thing that Brian Kelly needed, right? Like there was a lot of thoughts that he was going to get to Atlanta, Brownie. And the fact that he ends up at least having a Heisman Trophy winner, it's kind of like, all right, look over here when this is really happening right now. So I'm just, again, another monster year for Brian Kelly. And now it'll be interesting to see how they attack the transfer portal. They got Garrett Nussmeier, but I can't imagine that they wouldn't go. Why would you not go shopping when you have the hottest brand of college football right now? Mike Denbrock's coming back as the offensive coordinator. Like, where else would you want to play right now than Saturdays in Tiger Stadium?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. You've seen a 2019 Heisman winner and a 2023 Heisman winner. So, I mean, that should be good recruiting right there if I'm Mike Denbrock, He is Peter Burns of the SEC Network and ESPN. This is the Burnout, and it's presented by MyBookie.ag. Code next round when you sign on to get that sign-on deposit match up to $1,000. That's when you use code next round at MyBookie.ag. We are also outfitted by Roback.com. Roback.com, code TNR20. Save you 20% off your initial order. The softest hoodies you'll ever buy. Great quarter zips, golf shirts, pants, all at Roback.com, code TNR20 to save 20% on checkout at Roback.com. All right, let's talk about some of these bowl games, the New Year's Six bowls that involve the SEC teams. Georgia is playing Florida State. Good luck figuring out the motivation for either one of these teams. You've got Georgia, who is used to eating filet mignon, and now they're only getting a ribeye. You got Florida State, who could taste the filet mignon, and now they're getting chicken. I don't know how you judge the motivation of either one of these teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously for Florida State, I'm kind of waiting to see what happens with Keon Coleman, the big stud wide receiver, because it feels like that's one of those guys that you're like, all right, what's the purpose of playing? But I think to a credit of I think we're actually going to get a really good matchup between those two teams as far as how they want to play, because I think it's all about culture, right? Like, I think that you've had so many guys at Florida State that feel like they were wronged by the College Football Playoff Committee that says, all right, one more ride for the boys, and
Right.
let's win this thing against Georgia, who easily could have been, hell, if you would have told me they ended up being at number 4 or number 3 in the College Football Playoff despite the loss, I would have been like, yeah, I mean, they're that good that I think there's some part of it to look at it is that if you go undefeated, you will get votes in the coaches poll as a national champion. I don't think that there's a doubt. There's teams that there's going to be coaches to be like, man, they did everything. I'm going to give them some votes. So I think that they're going to be locked in. But I could argue the same thing about Kirby right now, right? Like, like for those guys, he's created a culture out there that they love it. And a lot of those guys are going to be headed to the NFL as well, too. It would not surprise me. I'd be surprised. I mean, unless we know anything in the last 48 hours, I wouldn't surprise me if Brock Bowers plays.
Yeah.
Ladd McConkey, if some of these guys that are thinking about, what their career is going to look like going forward, that they want to play one more game with the University of Georgia.
And we've talked a lot about the Heisman, and I saw odds this morning that had Carson Beck 4th, Jalen Milroe first, Carson Beck 4th. A game like this could kind of launch that campaign. I mean, it's going to be the last taste a lot of people have of Carson Beck. You go out and you tear up Florida State on a national television audience, and people are going to be like, there's a good Heisman candidate.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's about, and that I think is the difference with name, image, and likeness being part of the equation now, is that coaches can say, listen, we're going to use this as a showcase because next year you're our guy. You're the guy that has been there, almost won a national championship with the Bulldogs. You're going to be coming back. And that's why I think some of these other quarterbacks like Vandergriff end up transferring out because they're like, dude, Beck's more than likely going to come back and I can play somewhere. And now, like, more than likely, we'll have an opportunity to see Brock over with Liam Cohen and that offense over at Kentucky and to see one more year of Carson Beck. And if Carson Beck comes back, my goodness. I mean, think about that. Quinn Ewers coming back, Jalen Milroe coming back, Jackson Dart coming back.
What a league,
I mean, I nearly cursed. I mean, it's out of control about how good the quarterback play will be.
Yeah. Georgia, by the way, about a 2-touchdown favorite in that one at mybookie.ag. The weirdest part about this is it's an afternoon Orange Bowl. And, just growing up as a kid, man, that Orange Bowl was always New Year's night for me. And that just feels like the Orange Bowl is supposed to be a night game.
Yeah, I mean, the only one that to me now, like, still has a time frame on it is Pasadena in the Rose Bowl.
Yep.
Like, as long as I can get the sunset late into the second half, like, to me, whether it's an early game or a night game with these bowls, I don't necessarily care. But I started thinking about it too, about like, man, how much would it be? How great would it be if we're talking in a week from now, like Penn State is getting ready to host Alabama in a matchup, right? Like, and the snowstorms are just crazy, and then like we just see this picture of like, Lane Kiffin all bundled up in a parka watching Quinshon Judkins, get ready and practice outside of, Columbus, Ohio for a playoff game. Like, I can't flip and wait until next year's playoff.
No, it's going to be phenomenal. That is a Saturday afternoon game in the Orange Bowl, December 30th. The night before, Missouri and Ohio State playing the Goodyear Cotton Bowl. Missouri a slight favorite in this game at mybookie.ag. And some of that is because you have no clue who's playing for Ohio State. I mean, their quarterback is in the transfer portal. Marvin Harrison going to the NFL. He's going to be a highly drafted guy. And I expect full buy-in for Drink and in Missouri. I would imagine every single one of those guys is out there playing. This is a good spot. I mean, it's rare that Missouri gets a chance to win a helmet game like this over Ohio State.
Well, I talked to Drink a couple of days ago after we saw the matchups, and I was like, buddy, like, you couldn't have asked for a better situation about like, hey, it is a big helmet game. It is a brand. It's an opportunity in a New Year's Six Bowl to build on one of the greatest seasons you've ever had. And truthfully, I didn't mention this to him, but yeah, what you said, Kyle McCord's in the transfer portal. Harrison may not end up playing. You're kind of catching him at the right spot. And I think he'd be the first to believe it. Go, like, if you looked at their roster, even with those guys, and you looked at Missouri's roster, you're probably still going to lean towards Ohio State at that point. But what I don't think you understand is the camaraderie of that Missouri team that wants to finish this off as well. So, again, this is one of those ones where you're like Vegas almost has you, because Vegas is like, wait a minute, why is Missouri a favorite here against Ohio State? That's too good to be true. I got to go with Ohio State, and then realize Missouri's just like, bro, this is I mean, this is
Well,
Braveheart, Mel Gibson. Like, we're gonna win this damn football game.
this is one of those though. Like I said, good luck figuring out the motivation for FSU and Georgia. This is one where at least half the game I know the motivation level. I think Missouri is thrilled to be in this situation, and Ohio State probably it's a team that's been to the playoffs a lot. They're probably a bit disappointed to be here if you try to judge those things.
Yeah, but I think there's I think there's part of that is I would be surprised if Ohio State doesn't give Missouri a really good game. In fact, it might be surprising if Missouri wins this game.
Yeah.
Not because I understand the motivation, it's just the fact that I think Ryan Day, you lose 3 straight years to Michigan, you have something to prove, and you don't want to go into the offseason right now and look at this and go, man, we just got bullied around by Missouri of all people. Like, there's a lot riding on the line for him, because let's say Harbaugh ends up leaving. You lose this game against Missouri, not a quote unquote inferior brand as far as just, East West
Yep.
Coast
Right.
college football. And then all of a sudden people are going to look at Ryan Day and go, man, if he doesn't beat Michigan without Jim Harbaugh, is he the right guy? I think this is almost like one of those games for Ryan Day. Like, it's a must win for him just to kind of stave off like the narrative that he's on a hot seat coming up next year.
Missouri a 2.5-point favorite and the Cotton Bowl against Ohio State. They're at mybookie.ag. Use code next round when you make your initial deposit, and they give you a match up to $1,000. That's when you use code next round at mybookie.ag. All right, on the next Burnout, we'll discuss some of these other bowl games. A lot of SEC teams in bowl games: Tennessee, Ole Miss, many Auburn, many others. We'll discuss them all throughout the next few weeks with Peter Burns, the SEC Network, and ESPN. Burnsy, thank you for the time, man. Enjoyed it.
I can't wait till we do transfer portal combat as well too, when we can start getting in. But remember, next week we'll also be able to talk about the SEC schedule reveal, which will be coming at Wednesday over at 7 p.m. over on ESPN. So finally, I know you've been waiting. Nobody knows the results yet, Brownie. We'll be able to talk about those games.
You've not looked. Burns doesn't know the ESPN story that leaked out. He doesn't know it.
I don't want to look. I don't want to know.
You've gone this far. Don't do it now in the next 24 hours. You're good. All right, Burnsy. Thank you, man. Have a great week.
See you, buddy.